The transverse ventilation, which is better ventilation, and internal filtration increases the cost of operation, thus reducing the margin of profit. So none of the privatised toll roads in Sydney have it, and everyone has asked for it. No one has got it. So I would say one of the other things that we've told the community organisations is don't make the mistake that the North Connects group did. They focused very strongly on the filtration. They campaigned very strongly on that, and the department realised that since they weren't going to oppose the motorway, they didn't have to worry. So even if filtration is your ultimate goal, campaign strongly on everything else and make sure that filtration is always mentioned.
There's no reason to oppose it. It costs less than 1% of the project cost. But RMS have drawn a line in the sand that they'll never filter, and they'll push any argument, as far as I can see, to say that, we don't need to filter because it doesn't impact. So they'll quote the M5 East filtration trial, which was actually, it's a red herring. It was a minute amount of the shitty air in the M5 East tunnel that was pushed through a filter. They had to dig a new tunnel to be able to push that air through to be able to filter it, and then they pushed it out again, and their monitoring equipment wasn't very good, and then they said, well, you couldn't really measure the difference, so therefore it doesn't make a difference. But filtration works, but it probably not going to get it.
And that's the quote from after that filtration trial. Is the estimated annual health benefit of removing 200 kilograms was $56,000 at 2011 prices. This comparison suggests that the operating cost of removing PM in the M5 East was around 13 times the health benefit. So it came down to cost benefit. And health was the cost.
Yep.
Yeah, Michael, Alison, nice to meet you.
Yes, you too.
One question, when I look at the River Expressway today, it's got so many cars in it. Why isn't that a health risk to everyone around it today, let alone what they're
The
planning?
Warringah Freeway, did you
The
say?
Expressway.
Yeah.
It's the filthiest road in Australia, I suspect. Which, the other question I've got is for North Sydney Council. I'm not really understood their response to this in terms of air, in terms of air monitoring, and I know you're doing a study, which is great. But wouldn't it be better for North Sydney Council to invest in a permanent air monitoring system, ongoing, and reporting on air quality, given this council suffers probably the most of any council in Australia from traffic pollution, and then making that public and letting people have the information to say that there's a big problem there, why you're trying to make it worse. And related to that, the other question probably about, I think, given the concentration of pollution is greater the closer you are, the whole idea of preschools and schools being within 20 metres of River Expressway must be a health issue today. So why, in America, you can't build these things within 60 feet, so why do we let them be built and operated on the River Expressway today? Isn't that a part of the political story we want to tell our masters, that this is unacceptable and hurting our children, for example?
This is going to be a combined response, I think. I don't think we're arguing that living next to the Warringah Expressway today is a healthy option, but we don't believe that building a tunnel, if you look at the induced demand, is actually going to make that better. We actually think it's going to make it worse. So let's start looking at what we've got now and make it better, not worse. I think you can go for the North Sydney Council answer, I think.
I can only speak as a minority independent councillor. Yes, I agree with you. We should have, and more than a year ago, we put up a motion to ensure that there was air quality monitoring that would start in multiple locations in the North Sydney local government area, so that we could use it as a baseline to inform a robust and strong submission against the project, calling for a halt and review. That was ultimately overturned. It has now been recently reinstated by the unanimous decision of the council. My view is that it's too little too late, because it's coming to the next council meeting to whether to engage an expert to start it now or not, just for this project. We won't have 12 months worth of monitoring in order to inform a submission. So broadly, one, yes, we already have a compromised air quality in North Sydney. The location and uses of schools and educational institutions are historic, and many of them were there before the Warringah Expressway was built. And so I think at the council level, the council ought to be leading the way and providing permanent monitoring that is constantly released as part of radical transparency to the community. At the moment, that is the position of the majority at the elected level. So you're the same as I'm saying to you about the state government is be engaged in the next local government elections if these are important to you.
But with all the new people moving into North Sydney, if they wanted to put a preschool right next to the Warringah Expressway, the new one, would North Sydney Council object today? Whatever you know?
Well, unfortunately, and that is about state government. There's a state environmental planning policy about education institutions and childcare centres that sets the development standards. And at the moment, air quality isn't one of them. And the same thing's happening all around the city. There are in hugely compromised positions, and I'm with you. I think that ought to be factored in because of everything we know about the impacts, particularly on all children, but particularly on children in childcare.
I just want to note, though, sometimes communities, I think, get this sense of security from having monitoring. And that has been debunked in the St Peter's case. I think they're monitoring getting the results very late or not at all as a school. So the school one getting the monitor put in and then weren't given the results so it's only as good as, monitoring is only as good as actually getting the results in real time and data that the community can actually understand and respond to in real time. So if you're getting the data months later, and what St Peter's have had are exceedances that may have really caused harm, and they've got increased asthma being reported within the school, etc., then it's only as good as being given the data and data that the community can understand. And I think it's a real, I'm not saying don't do monitoring, but we've also got to demand that data. And I would add to that, this is probably going even further, that we need some real health studies done around these unfiltered tunnel stacks. Some longitudinal health studies that actually look at the range of health impacts that we're seeing the science come forth with, not just respiratory impacts, but diabetes, heart disease, stroke, all of these things actually need to be looked at as around those stacks, and we need some real hard evidence.
Well, one of the conversations I had with Alison was that gentlemen at Macquarie University proposed to do a long-term health study, including, map it, work out the risk, and then turn it into health impacts, which is the magic bit, and also have the independence, the professional standing to take the data, interpret the data, publish the data, and stand up in public and defend the data. And that costs a lot of money. I mean, to do that sort of study,
so does people get sick
is sort of
from
$100,000. But given the amount of money and what the issues we're dealing with, they're rather minor, really. Not minor for me, of course, but collectively the issues we're dealing with. Why don't we commission somebody to do a $100,000 study
the
for
project?
City Council?
Well, frankly, I think it's up to the state government. It's their project. They ought to have done all of this before they embarked upon it. No, but what I'm saying is the council is a representative of the community concern and is constrained by the
I ask a question. How much does the council spend on greenhouse gas emission amelioration, and how much money do you spend on noxious vehicle emissions that cut the council in half? Which one's hurting people more? Greenhouse emissions or car emissions?
Well, clearly, currently, car emissions on individual health, but
thank you. I agree.
It is a state government.
fellow down here with his hand up. Yep.
So I've got kids at St Marys and I live in the area. And firstly, thank you guys for this.
Yeah.
It's quite reassuring to know that this is happening behind the scenes because this is all new to me.
Sorry.
Well, not all new to me, but a lot of what you said is, it's like you said, it's quite frightening. But the thing that's, I think, the most frightening is a resident of the North Shore who drives through Haverfield and St Peters infrequently, and when you go there, it's horrifying. And if I think that's coming here, that's what scares me most. And what I remember from years ago when that was in the planning stage, those inner west communities were very vocal. Not as vocal as what I'm seeing here in the media, and maybe it's my impression, but I seem to recall they were very, very noisy, but yet their voices were not heard. So what did they do wrong? What can we learn from them? And we've got to go back to our schools now and tell people what to do. I personally, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that I'll put a dot on a map and I'll write a letter to Gladys, but I honestly feel that will make zero difference. How do we energize people to believe that it will make a difference?
Can I answer the really different question?
Yeah.
It's a very complicated thing that happened down there. One of the big problems they had was it was 33 kilometres long. So that meant that there were many different communities, which meant achieving a consensus was almost impossible. So the organising groups had a lot of trouble keeping together, and we didn't have the knowledge that a lot of people now you have up here. So you get to build on everything we've learned, and you also get to build on the fact that there's big inquiries. So what you're actually standing on is a much more stronger foundation in order to defend yourselves. What they did wrong was essentially they were not unified. They were unable to agree on an alternative to argue for, because if you just say no motorway, it's a lot harder to get that strongly in the media. Also, they were not politically powerful. They weren't well connected to some of the most important people within the state party. So up here you're well connected to the state Liberals. Down there, the Labor Party was it's a bit flexible. But also the local member, many of the local councillors down there were not, they supported the project quietly and behind the scenes, and they obstructed movements to try and oppose it by the community. So that meant that we actually spent a lot of time fighting the local councillors and the local federal and state MPs. That was a big problem for us. So we lost a lot of our headway fighting that. One of the problems for Haberfield was the Premier came in, he sat down with the patriarch of a lot of the families there, the patriarchs of the families in that area. It's a very old, tight-knit community. And he got their approval because it wasn't affecting the north of Haberfield. So everyone in the south of Haberfield wasn't connected to them, they just got taken out. But by opposing it in strongly, they were able to ameliorate some of the impacts. St Peters, they just had no connection. It was a largely industrial area, and the government went offshore of them. But that was also partly because the department wanted those routes. The department didn't want these routes. So you do have the strength of having the department not previously arguing for it. So they may be very interested in changing the Warringah Freeway to improve traffic flows, and that may be making them much more eager on it than before. But the cost of this thing, the technical challenges of it, it's going to be a problem. You do have a much stronger base to argue from in order to knock it over.
I think there's a couple of advantages. One is that it is an advantage and a disadvantage. We're in a safe Liberal Party seats, so the advantage of that is that we do have better access and more ability to influence our local members. The only place we have to do that is at the ballot box. The other advantage I think we have is that we are approaching the March election, and as Matthew said, there is an historical alternative of the DY to Chatswood link that is more than justified on a whole series of levels. What I would say to you, I agree with you, it isn't enough that you write to your local member, but you should. It isn't enough that you go on and put the I object pin. I think we have to be out on the streets. There's, for those of you who live in North Sydney or don't, on Saturday at 11 a.m, there's an overdevelopment rally that is about a whole lot of things, including the Western Harbour Tunnel, because it is a continuum in North Sydney, and I'd say get your bodies out to Hume Park at 11 a.m. so that the media and the local members can see your concern. There will be more of these rallies that will take place in the lead up to the election, and the best thing you can do is speak to your neighbours and speak to anybody else and say the only real muscle we have to flex is the one in the ballot box. And so if you are a traditional Liberal voter and you don't want to vote for anything else, then put a protest on put a note on your ballot paper, because we know that the scrutineers for all of the parties sit there and monitor exactly what the sentiment is. It doesn't necessarily even invalidate your vote, but it's important that the most important place to send that message that this is something that you don't want and that you can't, that we shouldn't be taken for granted just because we're in a safe seat is on the 23rd of March.
As parents at Camray Public School, we got together with Anzac Park Public School. We pretty much realised after going through, and as I said, we did not come to that position lightly at all. We realised that we needed to take a strong position, and we developed a website called stopthetunnel.org, which you might have heard about. We are working with a number of schools, a number of community groups from the Northern Beaches all the way to Rozelle. The reason why that we have taken that very strong message is we believe that we need to send a very strong message to have any chance of diverting this project. We, on that website, so rather than producing a newspaper, which they've done in the Inner West, we produced a website because we thought parents are going to read that and have time to maybe have a look at it. It's got all the information. We put links up to the RMS maps. We always advertise all the RMS consultations because we want you to consult with the RMS. We're not trying to divert community in any way, shape or form with regards to that, but we put instructions there on all the different ways that you can give feedback. We've had on our Facebook page, it's reached 13,500 people in the last week. So we are getting reach. We haven't pushed our numbers, but I would say I know the planners are watching how many people are following us as an indication of community's sense. They are looking at the number of pins on the map. They are looking at the number of letters being sent in. They are looking at the number of people that turn up to the consultations and the number of people that turn up to rallies or community groups. It is a numbers game. And my sense after meeting with Gladys and the RMS at the moment is they don't, and after the North City Council meeting, which we shall not discuss, there is this sense that they don't actually believe that we're upset about this as parents and as genuine community members. They think that we're not politically affiliated at all. Oh, I'm a Liberal voter, sorry, everyone's upset with me about that, but I genuinely am looking at this from a resident's and a parent's perspective and a risk management perspective, and I think each and every resident needs to do that. And we're not pushing a particular vote or political affiliation at all. We are saying we need to have a voice as a community into this. It is going to be huge, and we need to have a voice.
Yep.
I was just going to add to that. They have social media monitoring. They monitor all of the social media. They monitor all of the mainstream media, the ABC, if you can get it onto the ABC. there will be someone in the local area who's a party member who will, if you have a yard sign that says no tunnels, they will note it and it will get back to the local member. They will notice any flyers that are handed out. They will notice if you have a card table. All you need is to just stand outside of the shopping centre and hand out an A4 or an A5 leaflet. That gets noted. You call your MPs, that gets noted. You only have to sway the local Liberal members. The Labor Party is opposed to it. You are actually in a very good position, and community activism is the cheapest, most rewarding hobby you can get.
Did you say that Gladys wasn't concerned? Is that what you said before from your...
No, she was concerned. There is a strong feeling that she is not strongly in favour. So there's a sense that she would be easier to move than, say, Mr. Baird would have been able.
It depends if you're coming from the outside or the inside, I think. Mind you, the stadium's flipped overnight, so I think she's starting to listen, is my sense.
Yeah.
I hope she's going to listen more. We're still getting letters that say she's moved the stacks, and I sat there and went, you know as well as I do, it doesn't matter where the stack location is, it's the dispersion.
Yeah.
We're still getting letters that say the same thing we did 6 months ago, so I feel like there's a bit of acknowledgement that there's a bit of a murmur out there, but not a real true understanding. We've got Willoughby Council meeting on Monday night coming up, so if anyone wants to come to that. And the last meeting where there was a motion, they just were completely in denial that the community was possibly concerned, and maybe it was just a few bush care people at Flatlock that cared. We really need to, we all need to stand up about it.
Call the Liberal councillors, every one of them. You just call them all.
You mentioned Ted Mack as well. And I think if you're saying that putting a pin, sending an email, sending a petition, calling is not actually getting through to Gladys, then what is happening to representative democracy? I mean, you're playing it safe in the sense of, backing her again if it's not getting through, if there's no change. And the reason why I'm here is I don't have kids at the school. I'm a member of the public, but I am running as the Willoughby candidate at the state level for the Greens, and we absolutely oppose this. And as someone with a background in science who has worked in North Sydney for 7 years, lived in Willoughby, it needs to be grounded in this kind of community-based and disclosure of the data. Because what's happening is, I'm working with Kate Fairman on the inquiry, and you're hearing stories of people like you that are committing so much of their time to do their own analysis, sending petitions to the RMS to try and get the information that you should be having access to because you paid for it, and you guys are doing it all again. So I just think if this is not getting through, then doing the same thing again, and a protest vote if that's what a safe seat needs. I'm here and I'm happy to listen.
Can I just say something about that as well? The one thing about representing Wollstonecraft Ward is not only do we have the most concentration of educational institutions in the world, but all the latest census data and historical census data says the most educated people in Australia live in Wollstonecraft Ward, which is North Sydney, Waketon, through to Crow's Nest. And I must say, I'm astounded that intelligent, educated people think that being in a safe seat is an intelligent and educated response, because the only way to change and to be paid attention to is to be in a marginal seat. And so I have a stronger view than some of the other speakers. My view is that March is the test, and it has to be more than a protest vote, but it will be at the ballot box, and it either has to shake that the margins of the safe seat, or potentially with a really good independent candidate. I think certainly Felicity Wilson, if she's pre-selected, is very open to challenge in the same way that we've just seen in Wentworth. I think intelligent people in our community are the same as those who are in the seat of Wentworth. We're all a bit over. I'm an independent. I've never been a member of a political party. I think we're all a bit over the big party politics, and these sorts of issues are the things that reinforce to me that they're not listening, and there's a level of arrogance and expectation that we will stay a safe seat in perpetuity. And I think now's the time. I think there's that it's up to all of us to make that change.
I'm not going to disagree, but I am going to say that there's two steps. We've got to get to the 1st of December when this thing closes. We've got to get our voice heard into that process. We actually have to show and tell the RMS, Department of Planning, the EPA, the Department of Health, that this is not good enough, that we don't want this for our kids, that what they've done to the inner west and to the people of the west and the kids of the west is not acceptable, and they can't continue it. And I think we can't lose sight of the 1st of December, but certainly if there's no decision once we've done all this, that petition, we're up to about 3,000 signatures in the hand. It's got to be handwritten. It's at the back now. Take it home. There's 15 spaces on it. It's a spellathon. Go get it signed. Kids can sign it if you're with them. Get it signed and let's take it to Parliament. Let's get to 10,000, take it to Parliament and make it really, really clear what we think. And then come March, we'll see what happens.
So with the petition then, does it need, what do we do with it then, once we've signed it?
There's a PO box on the bottom of it.
So you
Send it back
just
to you.
everyone sends off their own,
Yeah.
okay.
Is it on your website?
It's on the website.
And where's
Everything's on the
the
website.
pin too?
RMS website.
Give me a copy of it.
So, yes, you can copy the petition, you can print it off, you can print off flyers to hand out in your own communities. So it's stopthetunnel.org, no S. And I'm not eliminating the other Facebook pages, but this is a website to give you the resources to be able to activate your own communities, because we can't, we're all exhausted by way, so we can't look to ourselves. We need everybody to be out there. If you really believe after tonight that this is the wrong thing for Sydney, and as I said, I've got relatives on the Northern Beaches. We're not saying that there doesn't need to be a solution to the Northern Beaches just because we're saying stop this tunnel project.
Question, Matthew. That option of the DY to Chatswood link, is that getting a lot of support within the powers that be that could push that kind of thing through?
There's some confidences that I have, but I do know that there is an appetite for it within the councils. It was actually from the organisation, the Sydney Metro Corporation, before it was what it is now. That was run by Rod Staples, who is now the head of Department of Transport. So it's his proposal. So I suspect he's probably in strong support of his own proposal. We know the Northern Beaches Council were amenable to it. We know that the Manly Mayor has come out and said there will be a rail line to Manly over her dead body.
She doesn't exist anymore.
Actually,
though.
the Northern Beaches Mayor, Michael Reagan, I wrote to him and he responded back to me and said that he would support, because I was saying, I sent him a picture of various rail line options, and he said I'd support a metro from Chatswood to DY. But we want the tunnel built. That's what he
And the
said.
Northern Beaches Sustainable Transport Planners are supportive of that as a policy matter as well. And in fact, it's not new. Bradfield envisaged it. It's been around for nearly a century. And I think that's the difference between a project that's being championed by the engineers in RMS, who are on about roads, versus the Department of Transport, and who have actually got a long-term transport master plan for Sydney.
And Brad Hazzard, who's the health minister, the New South Wales State Health Minister, I also wrote to him, and he also said that he would support a metro from Chatswood through to DY via the new Northern Beaches Hospital and French's Forest. But yeah, the Liberal Party obviously are supporting tunnels at this point.
There was a lady though.
Just in regards to joining groups and different things, first of all, will you be sending out this to our email addresses? Because we have to sign up.
Yes.
I can do our email address, so everyone's that. I just was joining some of those pages really down the bottom, but it doesn't look like there's groups, and the pages don't look like they've got many people that have liked them. So I'm sort of thinking that there seems like there's an opportunity to create a group where people can really discuss this. I mean, and I also just went on another Facebook page where they mentioned Stop the Tunnels, and all of the comments are all like, oh, this is fantastic, this is great, this is whatever. So there's a lot of opportunity to turn that message around.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
maybe we're not taking the full advantage of that.
I mean, so when you go to those pages, if you like the page and
seriously,
follow the
say
page,
it.
and if you get sick of too many messages coming up, then you can unfollow it. But definitely like it, and the more likes we get, the better.
And if you'd like to volunteer to be part of it, do it, because seriously, these are people like you, we're women who, and mostly it has been, who work and have children at these schools. So they're human beings who have ridiculous resources of energy, but join the ranks is all I can say. And if you've got a specific set of skills, then please volunteer it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a specific group. So there's not a group, there are just all pages?
There are a number.
Yeah, they sort of represent different areas, each of those groups. The StopTheTunnel website is kind of bringing all of those groups together, but it's not a discussion forum. There are a few groups, like this Save Flat Rock Gully, for example, that's a closed group. So there are a few groups in there. But in one sense, we want to be public about the discussion. We actually want...
You have a public group.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it's just...
if you'd love to have, we'd love some help. But yeah, tell everyone to like and follow and join up. I think the community type groups are easier for people to say like to, but the ones that have a message like the Bring the Rail Line, the Schools Against Stacks and Stop the Tunnels, they're harder to like publicly, if you know what I mean. You've got to make a decision of where you stand to like that, but as we've seen, they are being watched, particularly those ones that have that strong message, so we do need to...
And that's not to say
share
that you're being watched, it's
No,
just a
no, don't
numbers
think that.
game.
It's just numbers.
Oh,
You
yeah.
just need
Just
numbers.
numbers.
Just not.
Just numbers.
Yeah. And there's interesting articles that come up on those pages. On a weekly basis, we're getting information about impacts of air pollution, impacts on children, various things. Yeah.
The Sydney Morning Herald article was great on the went through on the weekend.
Yes, yeah.
We certainly sent that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
St Marys parents.
Terrific.
Yeah, keep sharing. It's grassroots.
Yeah.
I hate the word activism, it's grassroots action, really. Everybody needs to...
Reluctant activists,
Be-
I'm sure.
Yes, quiet activists, but everyone needs to sort of take a role, really.
Well, thank you, because we're only talking from St Marys. We were approached by Sam, who gave up one of her nights, and Ted to meet with some of us.
Yeah.
So we're very grateful. So thank you for taking it on for us.
There's still a lot of community that still don't know.
No,
And
that's
that's
why.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
And you look at all the beaches, and I've got friends up there, all who think the tunnel's still fantastic.
Well, I
So
have
I
someone-
explained where the stacks are, and they're going, oh, like there.
Bangala.
Oh.
I think
Oh,
it's also
and all of a sudden, oh, that actually now, and it's
not.
not NIMBYism at all.
No.
This is all, people are really worried about their communities, but people don't know it, and that's deliberate. It is absolutely.
Well, I wonder if the metro, we've had a lot of parents say that the metro is happening, and I'm like, this has got nothing to do with the metro. So I think whether the timing is being deliberate, so like, why nobody.
Yeah.
So
So
there are a lot of
We've
people.
all got fatigue from all of this.
Yeah.
It's just, we're all exhausted.
Overdevelopment fatigue.
So it's really important that you pass the message on, because we can't get to everybody, and obviously North Sydney Dem and St Marys are large schools, and this is the turnout that we have tonight. So it's up to you to go back to your communities to pass that message on, because
And we'd love to come to other schools too, if you've got contacts in other schools.
exactly. And we'd be happy to do another night if you can get the numbers. Okay. Yeah.
Everyone believes Gladys is a